You're welcome on the news. The headline says as Israel-Gaza conflict continues, war slams United States United Nations veto on Gaza ceasefire. WFP stops food to North Gaza amidst chaos. China's Coast Guard sparks panic in Taiwan. Imran Khan excluded from ruling coalition. An ex-FBI informant says he got Hunter's intel from Russian officials. Talking Israel-Gaza war, the United States has again vetoed a draft United Nations Security Council UNSC resolution on Israel's war in Gaza, stoking extensive criticism from adversaries and allies alike. Tuesday's step was the third U.S. veto of a United Nations resolution demanding a ceasefire in Gaza, and a day after Washington dispersed a resolution that would support a temporary ceasefire connected to the release of all Israeli captives from the Palestinian enclave. The vote in the 15-member council was 13-1, with the United Kingdom refraining, reflecting the staunch support from countries around the world for ending the devastating conflict that has killed over 29,000 Palestinians. Zhang Jun, China's envoy to the United Nations, expressed strong disappointment and dissatisfaction with the U.S., according to report. Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenzia, said the United States veto marked another black page in the history of the Security Council. He accused the U.S. of trying to play for time so that Israel can complete its inhuman plans for Gaza, namely to squeeze the Palestinians out of the territory and completely cleanse the enclave. He added that no matter how bitter the aftertaste of the vote may be, we are not in the mood to give up. France's envoy, Nicolas de Rovere, expressed regret that a UNSC ceasefire resolution could not be adopted given the disastrous situation in Gaza. De Rovere added that France, which voted for the resolution, will continue to work towards all captives being released and for a ceasefire to be implemented immediately. Algeria's envoy said the UNSC has failed once again and cautioned the move could have profound consequences for the Middle East as a whole. The Palestinian group said the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden's decision to block Algeria's draft resolution benefits the agenda of the Israeli occupation, which aims to kill and displace Palestinians. The office of the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said the U.S. veto defied the international community and gave Israel an additional green light for the Israeli occupation to continue its aggression against the people of Gaza and to launch a bloody assault against Rafah. The Palestinian presidency also said that it holds the U.S. administration responsible for supporting and providing protection to Israel's barbaric attacks against children, women, and the elderly in Gaza. Qatar's United Nations ambassador Ilya Ahmed Saif Al-Thani said she regretted the UNSC's failure to adopt the Algeria-drafted resolution and pledged to continue facilitating efforts to secure a truce in Gaza. Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry expressed regret at the veto and stressed the need now more than ever to reform the Security Council, carry out its responsibilities in maintaining peace and security with credibility and without double standards. Norway's mission to the UN said it regrets that the Council was not able to adopt a resolution on an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel Morbodez blasted the U.S., saying its veto made it complicit in Israel's crimes against Palestinians. And Agnes Kalamar, the director of the human rights group, said that Washington had a chance to protect Palestinian civilians but chose the opposite path at the UNSC. Still on Israel-Gaza war, the United Nations Food Agency has halted delivering aid to northern Gaza, citing Israel gunfire as well as complete chaos and violence due to the collapse of civil order in the area. The newest suspension on Tuesday intensifies fears of starvation in northern Gaza, which has been nearly totally cut off from aid since late October amid Israel's overwhelming war on the enclave. The decision has not been taken lightly, as it risks people dying of hunger, but it said that the safety and security to deliver critical food aid and for people receiving it must be ensured. The United Nations World Food Programme, WFP, said. The agency said it has first stopped deliveries to the north 3 weeks ago after a strike hit an aid truck. It tried resuming deliveries this week, but said convoys on Sunday and Monday faced gunfire and crowds of hungry people stripping goods and beating a driver. Footage from the scene of the operation shows Palestinians fleeing to take cover amid the sound of gunshots and clouds of fumes from smoke bombs. Witnesses said one man died and many others were wounded in the attacks. The WFP, which has earlier cautioned of famine-like conditions affecting 2.3 million people in Gaza, said its teams witnessed unprecedented levels of desperation in the north over the past 2 days. The agency said it was working to recommence deliveries as soon as possible and called for better security for its staff, as well as significantly higher volumes of food and the opening of crossing points for aid directly into northern Gaza from Israel. The suspension of aid to the north comes amid a sharp decline in the entry of 8 trucks into the whole of Gaza. Figures by the United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, show the average number of 8 trucks entering Gaza has fallen from 140 in a day in January to 60 in a day in February. Israel, which controls entry points into Gaza, has opened just one crossing into the enclave, despite growing international pressure for the provision of humanitarian aid, including interim rulings by the International Court of Justice, ICJ. United Nations agencies say bulky Israeli procedures have reduced crossings of trucks, while right-wing Israeli protesters have blocked trucks at the Kerem Shalom entry point into southern Gaza, saying the Palestinian people should not be given aid. Shelo, a spokeswoman for the Norwegian Refugee Council, described the conditions of humanitarian workers in Gaza as unacceptable. Away from Israel-Gaza war, now a Taiwanese tourist boat, King Xia, was taking 23 passengers on a journey around Taiwan's outlying Kinmen Islands, just miles from China's southeastern coast, when it was interrupted by 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels. 6 Chinese officers jumped on board, inspecting the vessel's route plan, certificate, and the licenses of its 11 crew members in a forced inspection that lasted about half an hour, according to Taiwan's Coast Guard, which said King Xia had veered toward the Chinese side of the water to avoid shoals. The unprecedented encounter with Chinese law enforcement at a time of rising tension between Beijing and Taipei startled Taiwanese passengers on board. On Tuesday, Hua Binling, head of Taiwan's Ocean Affairs Council, said the incident stoked panic among the Taiwanese public. For years, sightseeing boat tours between Kinmen and Xiamen, the closest city on the Chinese mainland, have offered Taiwanese tourists a chance to gaze at China's dazzling skyline without the hassle of border checks, with China operating similar tour boats for its citizens too. But now the popular route has been caught up in growing tensions as China's Coast Guard adds up patrols in the area in what analysts say is Beijing's latest effort to tilt the status quo in its favor by undermining Taiwan's control of the waters. The escalation came after 2 Chinese fishermen drowned last week when their boat capsized during a pursuit by Taiwan's Coast Guard, who accused them of trespassing into prohibited waters around Kinmen. Beijing has blamed Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, for the deaths and seized on the opportunity to expand its presence in the waters. Beijing has denied Taiwan's designation of prohibited or restricted waters near Kinmen since the weekend, while its Coast Guard has launched regular patrols in waters around the islands to step up law enforcement. According to Taiwan's Coast Guard, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel intruded into Taiwan-controlled waters near Kinmen for an hour on Tuesday morning, which said it dispatched a ship of its own to sail alongside the ship vessel and used radio and loudspeakers to drive it away. 2 of Pakistan's dynastic political parties have officially declared the creation of a coalition government, a step that brings an end to closely 2 weeks of discussions and possibly keeps an incarcerated Imran Khan out of power despite his affiliates winning the most seats in the country's controversial poll. Late on Tuesday, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz (PMLN) and the Pakistan People's Party (PPP) announced the coalition naming former Premier Shehbaz Sharif as Prime Minister and Asif Ali Zardari as President. The development comes after the South Asian nation's general election failed to produce a decisive winner earlier this month. Independent candidates affiliated with ex-Prime Minister Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf PTI party secured the most parliamentary seats in a stunning victory for the jail cricket icon. But none of the three key parties that contested won the required seats to declare a majority in parliament. Shortly after the coalition announcement, the PTI accused the PMLN and PPP of stealing their mandate to govern. The PTI was effectively barred from contesting this month's general election after its cricket bat symbol used on ballots to identify candidates was removed and party members' speeches were barred from airing on television. PTI member instead stood as independent candidates. The party also made claims of wide-scale poll rigging, with Khan releasing a statement from prison last week saying, "I won against the misadventure of forming a government with stolen votes. Such daylight robbery will not only be a disrespect to the citizens, but will also push the country's economy further into a downward spiral." A still dynasty scion, former Premier Shehbaz Sharif, is the younger brother of Nawaz Sharif, a three-time former Pakistani Prime Minister. Still ahead, the ex-FBI informant charged with lying about the Biden's dealings in Ukraine told investigators after his apprehension that Russian intelligence officials were involved in passing information to him about Hunter Biden, prosecutors said on Tuesday in a new court filing, noting the information was false. Prosecutors also said Alexei Smirnov has been actively peddling new lies that could affect U.S. elections after meeting with Russian spies late last year, and that the fallout from his prior false bribery accusations about the Biden continues to be felt to this very day. Smirnov claims to have extensive and extremely recent contacts with foreign intelligence officials, prosecutors said in the filing. They said he previously told the FBI that he has long-standing and extensive contacts with Russian spies, including individuals he said were high-level intelligence officers or command Russian assassins abroad. On Tuesday, prosecutors with Special Counsel David Weiss' team said Smirnov has maintained those ties and noted that in a post-arrest interview last week, Smirnov admitted that officials associated with Russian intelligence were involved in passing a story about businessperson one, referring to President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden. The exposures about Smirnov's alleged foreign contacts were revealed as part of prosecutors' arguments to keep him jailed ahead of trial, though a federal judge later granted Smirnov release with several conditions, including GPS monitoring and the surrender of his 2 passports. Smirnov declined to answer questions as he left the courthouse on Tuesday evening. Prosecutors alleged that Smirnov claims to have contacts with several foreign intelligence agencies, including in Russia, and that he could use those contacts to flee the United States. The explosive revelation comes amid backlash over how Smirnov's new debunked allegations played into House Republicans' impeachment inquiry into the president. Smirnov has been charged with lying to the FBI and creating false records. He has not yet entered a formal plea, and his lawyers said, according to reports in a statement, Mr. Smirnov is presumed innocent. On more stories, 2 charged with murder in Kansas parade shooting. According to prosecutors and court documents, 2 men in the United States have been charged with murder of a gunfight on the fringe of a Super Bowl victory rally in Kansas City, which killed 1 person and injured over 20 others. Prosecutors in the state of Missouri said, according to reports on Tuesday, that Lindell Mays and Dominic Miller were charged with second-degree murder and many weapons counts in the shooting, which started in a quarrel over eye contact. The arrest of Mays and Miller brought to 4 the number of people facing prosecution in the Valentine's Day shooting. Last week, 2 teenagers were also taken into custody and charged as juveniles in family court with firearms offenses and resisting arrest. Prosecutors have said they could seek to also charge the 2 minors as adults, and that investigation was continuing. Jackson County Prosecutor Jean Peters Baker said the probe showed the violence on February 14th stemmed from an argument between Mays and another person who was a stranger to him. While both Mays and Miller are charged with murder, Baker said the evidence showed it was a bullet fired from Miller's weapon that struck and killed Elizabeth Lopez Galvan, 43, a radio personality. Police have earlier said she was one of 23 people struck by gunfire, including at least 9 children, but court documents filed against Mays put the total number of known gunshot victims at 25, including Lopez Galvan. Mays told detectives he began firing after someone in the other group said, "I'm going to get you," which he took to mean they would try to kill him, according to affidavits. He said he chose a random person from the other group to shoot as that person was running away, according to the document. Back to Israel-Gaza war. Gaza death famine amidst Israel's war. Over 4 months of Israel's war on Gaza have left it unrecognizable. In the streets, famine is a reality for closely all the besieged population, while the smell of death is ever present. With almost no access to medical care, numerous are suffering from disease, while infection awaits tens of thousands of men and women and children wounded by Israeli attacks. Hunger has taken a heavy toll on everyone, with businesses and banking services either damaged or unable to operate. There is no cash, no income, and little to nothing to meet the cost of feeding their starving families. With Gaza's ability to produce its own food devastated by Israeli bombs, and hungry population looks for food from outside the Strip, provisions progressively limited by Israel's continuing blockade. Agriculture is in ruins. Fertile areas such as Beit Hanun, Beit Halahi, Lahiha, and Jabalia lie neglected as winter rains, vital to farmers, fall unheeded. Poultry and livestock have also been destroyed, victims either directly or indirectly of the Israeli bombs. Famine is a growing reality. Few supplies are left and malnutrition is growing. The international aid that does make it in can hardly meet the needs of a hungry population or stop the situation from worsening. Since the beginning of Israel's ground offensive, several humanitarian agencies like the United Nations Relief and Works Agencies UNRWA have stopped operations, meaning hundreds of thousands of people cannot access any aid. The endless waves of bombing have demolished Gaza's infrastructure, razing or closing the factories producing and processing food. Closely half the population of Gaza now faces daily shortages of bread, clean water, and basic ingredients for life. In the east of Gaza, canned goods were once processed and bakeries seem to stand on every street. They are now simply memories for the starving population. The struggle extends beyond food. Water has become so scarce that contaminated drinking water has become the norm. As more people, especially children, consume polluted water, severe bacterial illnesses have thrived. For those willing to risk falling buildings or bombs, firewood to boil water can be found, but cooking gas is a distant memory. Now we'll take a short break, and when we come back, I'll bring you more stories, particularly from Nigeria. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Now on Nigerian stories, Shetima blames saboteurs for economic woes. The federal government has said some people are working to undercut the efforts of the President Bola Tinubu administration to overhaul the Nigerian economy. Senator Kashim Shetima, the vice president, stated this at the Public Wealth Management Conference in Abuja yesterday, pointing accusing fingers at smugglers, politicians as brains behind the attempt to pull the nation backward. The VP revealed that 45 trucks loaded with maize were stopped while making their way to neighboring countries at midnight on Sunday. He revealed that the administration has been saving 1 trillion naira monthly since coming on board. The vice president admitted Nigerians were passing through challenges and appealed for patience as he voiced confidence that things will soon change for the better. And finally, on the news, Senate to probe Buhari Emefiele over 30 trillion naira loans. On Tuesday, the Senate resolved to investigate how the 30 trillion naira ways and means loans of the Central Bank of Nigeria was obtained and spent by the administration of ex-President Muhammadu Buhari. Ways and Means is a loan facility through which the CBN finances the government's budget shortfalls. The Senate stated that a careless spending of the overdraft collected from the CBN under Godwin Emefiele mostly accounted for the food and security woes the country was presently facing. The Red Chamber then decided to set up an ad hoc committee to probe what the 30 trillion naira overdraft was spent on by the immediate past administration, noting that the details of the spending were intentionally not made available to the National Assembly. The ad hoc committee, which will be constituted on Wednesday, will also review the 10 trillion naira spent on the anchor borrower scheme, the 2.4 billion US dollars forex transaction out of the 7 billion US dollars obligation made for that aim, as well as all the intervention programs. The development came as biting food crisis, rising inflation, naira depreciation, and increasing insecurity continue to take tolls on Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu and his economic team have come under strong criticism after his last year's fuel subsidy removal and exchange unification policy unleashed harsh economic conditions on citizens. Tinubu's cabinet members have continued to argue that the present crises were intensified by the gross mismanagement of the Buhari regime, arguing that the present reforms were meant to right the wrongs of the past administration. The newest step by the Senate is anticipated to unravel the ways the country and its resources was allegedly mismanaged by the Buhari regime. In January 2023, Buhari had, in a letter to the National Assembly, requested that a 22.7 trillion naira ways and means loan should be converted to a 40-year bond with a moratorium of 3 years. He also requested approval to borrow an additional 1 trillion naira to fund the 819.5 billion naira 2022 supplementary budget, which the lawmakers approved last December. Following the request, the House of Representatives on May 4, 2023, approved the conversion of the 23.7 trillion naira loan to a long-term bond for 40 years at the rate of 9% per annum. The bond has a suspension of 3 years. Another look at the top stories. World slams US's United Nations veto on Gaza ceasefire. WFP stops food to North Gaza amidst chaos. China's Coast Guard sparks panic in Taiwan. Imran Khan excluded from ruling coalition. An ex-FBI informant says he got Hunter's intel from Russia's official. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Strike. Have a great day ahead.